Namaste. Welcome to Bodhi Television. We present different Buddhist personalities from around the world to talk about different aspects of Buddhism. Today we have Venerable Karma Lekshe Tsomo as our guest. She is a Buddhist nun. She teaches Buddhism in University of San Diego, right? And above all, she is an activist to revive Bhikkhuni Sangha in Theravada sect, which is now non-existing. Let's talk with her about Bhikkhuni, women in Buddhism, and reviving of Theravada Bhikkhuni. Welcome to Bodhi Television. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
How are you now?
Very well, thank you. I mean, if full ordination is good for men, isn't it good for women too?
Yes,
right? It
obviously.
should be equally beneficial, equally valuable. So this is sad that some monks, like Venerable Ashvaghos in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, some of the monks told me, if the nuns become bhikkhunis, then we will get less donation.
What a reason, what a reason.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But in fact, in Sri Lanka, the opposite has occurred. Now that they have 2,000 or 3,000 bhikkhunis, everybody is getting more because the Dharma is flourishing, you see? So that's sort of limited thinking.
Welcome again. And now we can talk about the present situation. How is before coming to Theravada, I would like to have some background about Mahayana and this Dharmaguptaka and other sects. How is the situation of nuns or bhikkhunis in those countries?
Well, the situation of nuns in the Mahayana countries of East Asia is very good. All of them have experienced hardships. I mean, you think of the Korean War, you think of the 70 years of oppression of Buddhism in China. You think of, the Vietnam War. It's not been easy, but Buddhism is flourishing, and the Bhikkhuni lineage is very strong there. Maybe some of them have told me because they saw so much suffering during these wars and political turmoil that they came to the Dharma. I mean, they recognized dukkha, and they wanted to overcome dukkha and become liberated, and they saw that the best way would to become a member of the Sangha. So we find that in Korea, for example, there's something like 8,000 bhikkhunis, and in Taiwan, there are at least 15,000 bhikkhunis. In Vietnam, 20,000 bhikkhunis. And it's very difficult to get a count on China, but some people say that there are 80,000 bhikkhunis in China, which is not impossible because there are many monasteries there, large monasteries. I visited one monastery with 8,000 nuns. So in these countries, as I mentioned, they get a very good education, they get very good support from the community, and therefore they develop as teachers and really strong propagators of Dharma, which is good for everybody, right? They have programs for children, for old folks, they're hospital chaplains, they're prison chaplains, they're translators, they're researchers, university professors. So they're doing wonderful work. And this is a win-win, for Buddhism. We need all the human resources we can manage because the Dharma is in danger. With consumerism and modern society, we need all the help we can get, right? And the women are there to help, and they'll work 24/7, for the Dharma. So when the monks visit Korea or Taiwan or Vietnam, they see what the women can do. Then they really start to respect the nuns, and their attitudes start to shift, they start to change, open up. You see. Now, the outlier is the Tibetan tradition, where they don't have bhikkhuni ordination. They are also Mahayana, in the Vajrayana branch of Mahayana, and they don't have full ordination for women. It's not discrimination, it's just that the Bhikkhuni Sangha never reached Tibet. It's a very difficult journey. They didn't have flights at that time, and so apparently the Bhikkhuni Sangha just never got established there. There were a few attempts, but they were not successful. So the monks, however, have been ordaining the nuns as Shramanerikas with 10 precepts, and they're considered part of the Sangha. We wear the same robes as the monks, but there was still a problem with education. Many of the nuns in Tibet did not get any education. They could go for public teachings, but unless you study systematically, it's not so easy to understand those high teachings, right? Now, in the last 30 years, again, things have really changed in the Tibetan tradition. And we've been working to create systematic education programs for nuns. And recently, the first batch of 20 nuns achieved the Geshe degree, which is the highest degree possible in philosophy. So it showed that women can do it. And that was very inspiring to other nuns. Then on the practice side, I mean, women have always been great meditators, but they haven't always been recognized for that. So I think that things are changing, but you still hear in the Tibetan tradition people calling the nuns Annie, which means auntie, which is not very respectful. No, they have many respectful words for nuns, like Tsuma, like Chila, like Getsuma, or Jomo, which is reverend woman, you see. But they tend to use this word Annie, which is not polite. So we're trying to change it. It takes time. All these changes take time.
It takes time. Okay, you have talked about those countries where there are many Vicunas.
Yes.
Do you think the society gets from them what benefit we have when we have Vicunas? What is good for the society that we have Vicunas?
Wow, there are tremendous benefits. The nuns, as I say, are dedicated and working 24 hours a day for the welfare of the people, of the society. So they run programs for children. This is really important. If you look at Taiwan and Korea and Vietnam, you'll see that they have like Dharma schools on Sundays where they teach the children good values. They run summer camps for children, sometimes for as many as 1,000 children at a time. And the little kids just race, to get into these programs. And they'll wake up at 5 o'clock and they'll do prostrations and they'll chant and they'll meditate and eat vegetarian for a week or two, and they just love it. And then in the afternoon they'll act out the Buddhist stories in skits, and they really learn Buddhism nicely from a young age. So this is a really positive thing. And then they run programs in Buddhist culture and Buddhist education, like they'll run what they call Dharma events, where they have chanting. Say, for example, in Taiwan, they'll do chanting programs that last for a week. And it's all organized by the nuns. And the lay women come by the hundreds and chant, and some people think that chanting is just, rote. But actually, it's very meaningful. You're constantly thinking about the qualities of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. So all of this is helping to transform the mind. And so it transforms our human relationships, how we relate to our children, how we relate to our parents and our husbands or wives, how we relate to our co-workers. So the ripple effect of these programs
goes to the whole society.
Yes, it benefits the whole society.
Now, coming back to Theravada, we heard that a campaign is going on for last 2 decades that Bhikkhuni Sangha should be revived in Theravada sect also. Why it is necessary?
Ordination is a personal choice. Everyone can decide for himself or herself if they want to pursue this path of renunciation. And it's not easy, to give up all the, movies and dance party and things like that. Only certain people will choose this path. And in any society, it's only a small percentage, but there always have been these people who want to devote themselves to spiritual practice. So receiving ordination is a personal choice. And it's not necessary, it's an option. It's an option. And these days there's so many options in life. right? So only a small percentage will decide to become a monk or a nun and go to a monastery. I think it's very important for a society. First of all, this is the path that the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught a path to liberation, and he recommended this lifestyle, the renunciant lifestyle, for the reasons we mentioned, that we have more time to practice. And we don't have so many distractions as the lay people do. We don't have family obligations. We don't have to go to birthday parties and weddings and all of that sort of thing, right? So we can practice from morning to night. So that's a great opportunity, I think. And it's good for the society to have these people who set an example, first of all, of simple living. Okay, we see people today are just, running after money, crazy about money, and yet it's not bringing lasting happiness, right? And here are these monks and nuns who just have a few sets of clothes, or they said 3 robes and a bowl.
Yeah, that's enough.
They're perfectly happy because they're content with what they have. You see, this sends a good message to the lay society that we can be happy without all that stuff.
No, my question is, we have nuns with 10 precepts, simple. They are also nuns.
Yes.
They are living as gurumas in Nepal's context.
Yes.
This is going on for quite some 80, 90 years in Nepal. Now the new thing is coming that they should have full ordination also. Why is it necessary?
Well, as I say, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a choice.
Yeah.
If someone wants to keep 8 precepts, 9 precepts, 10 precepts, that's wonderful. Even 5 precepts, it's wonderful, right? But the idea is that by holding the precepts, we live a concentrated, dedicated, disciplined life that's devoted to the Dharma. So, for example, if someone comes and asks you if you want to go to a dance party, it's very simple. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? And so it makes life very easy. Now, the idea is that the more precepts we have, the more it contributes to our mindfulness practice, our discipline, to taming the delusions of the mind, greed, hatred, ignorance, right? By keeping these precepts, it helps to train the mind, because moment to moment we're trying to keep these precepts, right? So the theory is that the more precepts you have, the better you can progress on the path, right? But it's a choice. And 10 precepts is also very good, very good. No problem. I respect people who hold 8 or 9 or 10 precepts very much, or even keep 5 precepts. Well, that's fantastic.
Now, what is the practical difference between those with 10 precepts and those with 311, full ordained nuns?
Well, of course, those who are fully ordained are considered a field of merit. So when the lay people come to give donations, and they give donations to the fully ordained monks and nuns, that's optimum. That is what the Buddha recommended, that if we support the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, we get some sort of spiritual power or merit from that, which is beneficial for our own life, for our own practice, for our own future, right? So if the nuns are not bhikkhuni, they're not considered on the same level as a field of merit as the bhikkhus. So what we find in many societies is that the nuns are not as well supported as the monks, right? This is
right. Now, let's talk about the campaign. Can you shed light on how this started in short history also, how it started and how it became more and more popular among many Theravada countries these days?
Well, I think that the Sakadita conferences had a lot to do with it, because when that group of Sri Lankans came to Bodh Gaya in 1987, they had never heard the word bhikkhuni. They didn't know about bhikkhunis. But the minute they heard it, they thought it was a great idea, that we should have women practicing just like the bhikkhus. And so it started from there. It was something very wonderful, wonderful, to recreate what the Buddha himself established. The Buddha established a society with 4 parts.
Yeah.
Upasaka, Upasika, Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni. And today, without the Bhikkhuni, the Buddhist society is lopsided. it's not complete. You see, the Dalai Lama himself has said this many times, that the Buddhist society in the Tibetan tradition is not complete because they don't have bhikkhunis. You see, so that's really an important point. And if we have bhikkhunis, all of the advantages that I mentioned, they can be teachers, they can be translators, they can be meditation teachers. It's a wonderful thing. Of course, you can do that as a 10 precept nun too, no problem. But if you don't have the same level of support for your education programs, I mean, for example, if a monk wants to go and do a master's degree, it's easy for him to get donors to support him. But for a nun, it's very difficult, see? And so it's not equal. The nuns do not have the same opportunities to develop fully in terms of scholarship, for example. And sometimes their living conditions are not very good. They don't have money for their health care. Now, as I say, things are much better than they were 30 years ago. 30 years ago, you're right, the nuns were living in very poor conditions. When we first met, there were many nuns who were illiterate, could not read or write their own language. They were living in boxes, cardboard boxes with plastic on top in the Himalayas. Yes. And some people thought they were not much different from beggars. They were not treated very nicely because their circumstances were very poor. But it wasn't their fault. The problem was that they weren't recognized as renunciant women, and they should have been. And now, gradually, they are. So things have improved a lot. When you look at the expanse of history, 30 years is just a short time. But in that 30 years, we've made tremendous changes.
Okay, how was the activities of Sakyadhita grew? How it developed?
Okay, from the first conference, then, we established Sakyadhita as the International Association of Buddhist Women, the first international Buddhist women's association in the world. And we decided we have certain guidelines, to work for the Buddha Dharma and for peace in the world, and to help support Buddhist women's activities and all of these good things. And we decided to have a conference every 2 years to continue the conversation, because it was so inspiring to be around nuns who were bhikkhunis and were teachers and were writers and doing so many wonderful projects for the society, and meditators, really great meditators too. So I think a lot of us gained inspiration from that, seeing women who were confident, not arrogant, confident, and ready to work. And women are good at organizing things, we all know, right? So from that time on, people like Venerable Dhammavati also became inspired to become a bhikkhuni. And in 1988, the following year, she went with several of her disciples to Los Angeles, California, and became the first Nepali bhikkhuni in recent history. So that was a big step forward. It was very significant, symbolically significant, that she was so courageous to do that, because she wasn't receiving support from really anyone, right? But she knew it was the right thing to do, because the Buddha himself ordained women, right? And so she wanted to be a bhikkhuni, and she did it. And then she arranged any of her disciples who want to become bhikkhunis, she helped to arrange for them to go to wherever the ordination was held, Taiwan or any country where it's held. And the people in those countries are very receptive. They're very supportive. They're ready to pay all the expenses for nuns to come and become bhikkhuni. So that's nice.
Okay.
So there's no barrier.
In these days, grossly, how many nuns, how many bhikkhunis have become after the campaign started in all over these Theravada countries?
Well, it's really hard to get exact numbers. But as I say, if we count 8,000 in Korea, and then 15,000 in Taiwan, 20,000 or more in Vietnam, maybe 80,000 in China.
Mhm.
These are all Bhikkhunis.
I'm sorry. No, I'm asking about Theravada Vicunas. After the campaign
Theravada.
started,
Okay.
how many nuns got full ordination?
Okay, so 2 or 3,000 in Sri Lanka.
Mhm.
There are about 80 in Vietnam, Theravada.
Mhm.
In Thailand, maybe 200.
Mhm. Okay.
But in the West, there are also many. There are many bhikkhunis who are like not Asian background. But in, say, California, there are several communities of Theravada nuns. They live very strictly. Right, by the
That's
precepts.
interesting.
Yeah.
Can you say something more about the Western scenario? How Theravada Vicunas are doing in that part of the world?
Well, they seem to be doing very well. Usually they'll be supported by the local Thai community
Mhm.
who are used to offering dana for their lunch. And in the beginning they had some difficulties finding a place to stay. But gradually, because they practice so nicely and they teach so nicely and they behave so nicely, they attracted support. And now the communities, there are at least 5 in California alone. And they don't touch money. And they eat, they keep the precepts very strictly, but they get lots of support. So,
Nice.
yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay, coming back to the Southeast Asia again, it seems that we have quite a big number of Vicunis. How they are doing collectively or unitedly is how their organization, common organization is.
I think that there are communities where both the 10 precept nuns and the bhikkhunis live together in harmony and no problem, no competition. They each decide themselves whether they want to become a bhikkhuni or not. And but there has been some problems, say in Sri Lanka, where the monks do not support. There are certain monks who do not support bhikkhunis, so they've unfortunately advised their disciples not to take it, right? And this has created a sort of a disconnect between the two communities, and that's very sad. Because in fact, we're all nuns, right? And what level of precepts you receive is a personal choice. By advising their disciples not to become bhikkhunis, then they've created some discord between the groups, and that should not be among Buddhists. We should rejoice when people do good things, right?
It's a matter of joy for all Buddhists over the world, actually. And how's the situation in Thailand? There's Bhikkhuni Manandhar is leading a group.
Right. She has her own monastery, and they all train to eventually become bhikkhunis. But again, they can decide if they want to or not. Some come in, in Thailand they have this custom of temporary ordination. So there's some monks and nuns can go in for a limited period of time. I don't know how this tradition started, but they have, in the past, boys would go in for a year or two. And no girl wanted to marry a guy who hadn't been a bad risk. But these days, because people are so busy, maybe they'll go in for just 3 months, or maybe 1 month, or even a week. And then we go back to lay life. So some of the nuns do that also. Yeah,
that means we have some challenges, I can say. What are the challenges of new Vicunis in Theravada?
The new bhikkhunis in Theravada.
I'm sorry, using new is not a good word, but Vicunis who have come into existence after the revival of the whole movement.
Well, I think they're very happy as bhikkhunis, and the only problem is that some of the monks don't like it, and then they feel sad. They're not getting the encouragement and moral support that they should be getting. And that's quite sad. But the brave ones will carry on.
Of course, they have to. Okay, why do you think some monks do not support them? In most of the countries, the situation is same or similar.
Well, I think, first of all, they don't know the history of the Bhikkhuni ordination. Second, they don't seem to understand the Vinaya. if they studied the Vinaya, then they would see that the precepts are really not that different in the different lineages. They say Theravada tradition, it's broken, it can never be revived. But that's not really the case. The latest research coming from Germany, a bhikkhu in Germany, shows that actually ordination by bhikkhus can ordain bhikkhunis alone, without the participation of bhikkhunis. But they don't want to accept them. So maybe they just didn't have a chance to study Vinaya well enough. So in some cases, I think they feel threatened because, well, the nuns are really practicing well, and they're keeping the precepts well, and the lay people appreciate it, right? So in some cases, you can see that once you get bhikkhunis, the standards for the monks improves also. Because, oh, look, the nuns are behaving so well. Maybe we better, up our game, because otherwise it's rather embarrassing, right? So I think I can't speak for them. When I ask them, though, either they fall back on this, there are no bhikkhunis, which of course is completely false because, we have almost more than 100,000 bhikkhunis in the world. So that's not true. Then they say that the Vinaya doesn't allow it, but it does. So what could the reasons be? Society takes time to change. And I think it's pretty amazing what's happened in just 30 years.
Yeah.
Power is hard to give up. If you've been in power for 2,500 years.
Okay, lastly,
Yes.
how is the situation of Vicunas in Nepal? I've heard that they were very excited at the first phase, and they are retreating. They are not doing their practices, etc. How do you observe Nepal's Bhikkhuni Sangha? We can say.
I think they're practicing beautifully. Yeah, I can't. Every time I come, I'm just amazed by how well they're practicing. They seem to be very happy. They seem to be studying very nicely. They get along very well together. They respect each other, no matter what level of ordination they have. They all seem to be very friendly, and they're all creating wonderful programs, schools and medical clinics and all kinds of different programs for the children. This Rishini program for the girls, and Buddhist education, and Pali studies, and some are going for PhDs. And I would say that they're flourishing. I think it's quality, not quantity. You see, quality is the most important thing.
Okay, say something. What do you want to say to those Vicunis to encourage them to continue their devotion in Buddhism?
Well, I want to say that I admire them very much. I admire them for what they're doing. I admire their practice. I admire their Dharma studies, their understanding, their wisdom, their compassion. And I would encourage them to continue as they are. And please carry on for the benefit of the Dharma and for the benefit of Nepali society. And I hope that they will continue to participate in our international conferences. The Nepali nuns have now become the face of Nepal internationally. And it's a beautiful thing. They're very much respected.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to invite you here and have the opportunity to talk about different aspects of Buddhism, especially in the Bhikkhuni movement that's going around the world, and especially it's important in Nepal. Thank you very much. Well, we've just talked with Venerable Karma Lekshe Tsomo. We've just talked about history of women in Buddhism, and the state of Vicunas in Buddhist history, and necessary of reviving Bhikkhuni Sangha in Theravada. Thank you for watching Bodhi Television. Namaste.